Hello everyone, it's Alex Ragir, co-founder of Storyhunter. We are here at the Cannes Lion Festival of Creativity. I'm here on the FCB yacht. We're going to be speaking with Ari Halper, who's the Chief Creative Officer of FCB New York. It's a really interesting time for them in the industry. A lot of convergence, a lot of new competitors. Really excited to talk to him. FCB is the second oldest ad agency in the world.
Yeah.
And so what do you feel about all these changes that are happening in the industry now?
Well, if you think about FCB's philosophy, which is never finished, it's actually perfect for a sentiment like that because they've had to evolve over their history, and now is no different. I mean, once upon a time when they started in the 1800s, television didn't exist. They obviously rolled with the times. The internet came along, obviously evolved with that. It's more how we roll. It's more about creating the best solutions for our clients and not really even thinking about mediums. It's the Darwinian philosophy, I think, of survival. It's not the smartest species that survives or the strongest or the fastest. It's the most adaptable.
Now, PR industry, PR agencies are kind of becoming competitors. Media companies are spinning off branded content studios, consultancies buying Global 5, all this.
I'd say it's a combination of things. I would say diversity is a huge part of it, not just culturally diverse, ethnically diverse, diverse backgrounds, people who have skill sets in the digital space, the social space, PR space, etc. Those things combined with, I think, not being territorial is also huge. So I've worked with a lot of other companies, some that are within the IPG network, some that aren't even within our network. And when you aren't so territorial about where the idea comes from and you really just want to put the best idea forward first and foremost, and then bring in the different people from their respective skill sets to make that idea as strong as possible, that's how you succeed.
That's interesting because the ad industry is known so much for being so competitive that's sort of a mentality shift.
Yes, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely competitive, but not at the sake of cutting off my nose to spite my face, because if I'm working with, let's say, a social marketing agency and they come up with a killer idea that I think is actually better for the Uber platform and may even inform the filmic elements or the activation elements, and it's not just a thing that would be just in some social channel like Instagram or Facebook, I'll be the first to be like, oh my God, that's it. That's the idea, not what we were doing. Fuck that. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And when they see that, I mean, they oftentimes are quite shocked by it, but they appreciate it, and then in turn, I think, reciprocate when we want to push back or we want to be more arbiters of quality control or stewards of the brand, per se. And that's when I feel like you truly wind up working together and all ships rise, because at the end of the day, one agency can't possibly be the best at everything. It's just not possible. And so I think it makes sense to embrace those who are better at specific skill sets.
What about the trend of brands moving in-house, creating their in-house agencies? Is that, how do you kind of deal with that, or how do you deal with that in 20 years or 10 years?
Sure. I think there are a few reasons why it's happening, and I am somewhat not a fan of it. And the reason why I'm not a fan of it is not because it's taking business away from my industry, although obviously that's certainly not great. But the reason why I'm not a fan of it is I think what happens is you wind up in the emperor has no clothes syndrome. Is that if you typically talk with most clients, they eat, sleep, and breathe their brand or their product, as they should, right? but no other person out there does.
Yeah.
Right? They don't give a shit about your product. They only use your product because it benefits them in their lives or some need that they have.
Yep.
Otherwise, they're not really even thinking about it. So when you have an in-house agency, they have that same myopic point of view because they're eat, sleeping, and breathing the brand. And while clients obviously love that because they want you to be so invested in your brand, it helps to have that distance, that objectivity, to be able to see what they don't, to be able to relate to the consumer in a way that they can't.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that it becomes a balance, is that if you look at some companies that I do think do it right, they do have in-house agencies, but they also use outside agencies as well for certain parts of their communication strategy. And I think that's the healthier way to go.
What do you think FCB or other large agencies look like 10 years from now?
I think you're going to start to see a lot more unicorns, so to speak, as they're called. People who can do more than one thing. Creatives who are also editors.
Yeah.
Who are also content creators. I think the one constant, though, that I think you will see, which I think gets dismissed too often, is that storytelling is never going to go away. We'll find new ways to tell them, new mediums to tell them with, but storytelling, we love stories just as a species, and I think that the evolution of the people and the diversity, I think we'll just become great storytellers in new facets.
What do you think people nowadays, especially in the video space, people are saying you should do that you shouldn't do?
I don't subscribe. I know this is going to be heresy to say. I don't subscribe to the fact that you have to give everything away in the first 3 seconds. I think that you need to hook people, draw them in somehow, but that people will stay along for the ride if it's intriguing, if it's interesting, if they're curious to see where the story is going.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about how many movies that we've watched where we're like, oh my God, and then you see this twist, and then you turn out you love it. Or television shows where the series, like in the first episode, the pilot or whatever, it's like, okay. And then everyone's saying, oh no, give it like 3 episodes, then it gets really good and you become addicted. Like,
even Game of Thrones is a little like that.
Yeah, Game of Thrones was like that. Breaking Bad, I think, was kind of like that. Mm-hmm. But sometimes stories need a little bit of time to gain the momentum. And I know we're in an instant gratification world where everything is always on. You can access every single movie and song and video game at a push of a button on your smartphone. But once people find something that they're interested in, they stay hooked.
What do you think are the types of things in video storytelling that we'll see more and more of?
Well, I'm really hoping that that engagement with storytelling, so Bandersnatch, like that was on Netflix, was interactive storytelling, like a choose your own adventure, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to become more pervasive. I think we've still only scratched the surface of spatial storytelling like AR and VR. Mm-hmm. Right now, I feel like we're still telling relatively linear stories because that's how we're used to telling them for so many years. I'm looking very forward to getting to a place where we're telling stories in VR, where if you go that way, you have an entirely different experience than if you go this way, which also jives very much with the one-to-one and having personalized experiences.
What advice do you have to people, young marketers who are trying to move up and figure out what to do when it's changing in so many different directions?
First, I will say the grass is always greener. It's not as glamorous as it seems. I mean, you have your ups and downs. It's an amazing roller coaster, but the downs really do take a lot out of you. But if you're masochistic enough to endure it, the highs are incredible, and it is definitely worth it. My advice would be stay vigilant through the ups and downs. Don't get frustrated. If you truly want it, believe in it, keep pushing. Be open to everything and everyone. As I was talking about taking ideas from other agencies, even competitors, I think a long time in this industry, people only listen to the creatives for creative ideas. I've taken ideas from account people, planners, project managers, and produced them and won awards for them. I don't care where the idea comes from, so keep your ears peeled, so to speak, and stay humble.